One thing we need to set up is also the transition animation in music that introduces each graphic. And that's done on downstream keyers 2 and 3. Right now, we can see on downstream keyer 2, we've got weather, and we've also got words of wisdom on downstream keyer 3. There are keyboard shortcuts on the computer keyboard that we can use to preset those. So if this was a Tuesday or Thursday, we would hold the Control key and press S, and that will change downstream keyer 2 to show sports. If this was a Wednesday for entertainment, we would press Control E, and that would change downstream keyer 2 to entertainment. Now, in entertainment right now, I don't have an entertainment graphic, so let's see if I can find one. I'll click the plus key, browse, and click entertainment. Now I'll use my shift key to select 2 of them and click open. And so now, if this was the day I would be doing entertainment, oh, let's see, I have to make sure I've got entertainment punched up here. Let's see, that's 7. There's entertainment punched up. It's ME7. And I can see that my monitor graphics are controlled by DDR2. Now, I would get rid of the weather graphics on a day that I'm doing entertainment. All right, let me go back and get rid of these entertainment graphics. Again, if I select one, hold Shift, and I select the second one, now I can use the delete key and get it out of my DDR2 playback. Let me get weather back to the weather temperature. So I've shown you how to preset using the keyboard to set up the weather, words of wisdom, sports, and entertainment. We also have a spotlight setup that we don't use that often, but when we do use it, it shows up in downstream keyer 3. And days that we have spotlight, sometimes it's on days when we do both weather and words of wisdom. So once we get out of spotlight and get into weather, the video switcher has to go ahead and reset to words of wisdom. And so they will just press the W and set it to words of wisdom. Let's take a look at how those transitions now work. Let's say you are on camera 3 and they introduce weather. You will have downstream keyer 2 ready to go because that's what is loaded with MixFX 4. You'll press the DSK2 auto button. As that plays, you want to select ME4 underneath on the program bus, and then as soon as it's done playing, you want to turn off downstream keyer 2. The reason for that is that downstream keyer 2 will be covering up that person's name. We want to make sure their name will come up. Let me show you that again. We'll go back to camera 1 this time. Let me go ahead and put a graphic up. And let's imagine that graphic's not there, but it's going to come in after we do the introduction to weather. All right, let me preset weather down here so it's not too confusing of what we're looking at today. All right, so I know now that I've got ME4 I need to go to for weather, but the way I'll get there is I'll press Auto, downstream keyer 2, and now I'll switch ME4 underneath, and then I have to turn it off, otherwise I don't see that lower third graphic. So as soon as I turn it off, that's when the graphic operator can animate in the person's name. All right. The same thing is used to go to either words of wisdom or sports or any of the segments. So let's say weather is done. We go to the next anchor. It's 3. We go ahead and get ready with downstream keyer 3 this time. And now they've introduced words of wisdom, and we press downstream keyer 3. And then we select ME5 underneath it and then immediately turn it off. So that's how to get into the segments. And of course, coming out of them, it's easy just to take. But remember, the last segment of each show takes us back to camera 2. So let's go to camera 2 as if we just came out of Words of Wisdom.
Let's review how we go from an announcer to one of the program segments.
Let's say we're on anchor number 1 and they introduce weather. We make sure that we are ready with our downstream key or 2 auto button. And they say, here is Mr. Yako with weather. We click downstream key or 2, and as it plays back, we push ME4 on program. And as soon as it's done, we turn off the downstream keyer, and it still reveals ME4. The reason we turn it off is so that we can still see the downstream keyer 1. If this was on, we wouldn't be able to see the graphic playback. But with it off, we can now see the graphic playback. So it's important to get out of that transition. The same thing when we're done with weather, we'll go to the next anchor, in this case, camera 3. They'll introduce Words of Wisdom. We'll use downstream keyer 3. As it plays, we'll put ME5 underneath it, which is Words of Wisdom, and then turn it off so that our graphics will play. Now, once our last segment of the day is done, we need to get to the close. So we'll go from whatever ME we're on back to ME2. These are our anchors.